So let's start it with to-do list frontend first. Begin with creating a vendor directory, no, and a module directory to-do list. Now specify the module entry point by creating registration.php. Register the module component and in component specify the module name. Now create module XML file. Specify module name, no underscore to-do list, and then specify setup version. Now define frontend route. So go ahead and create routes.xml file under frontend directory. Create route ID to do and same frontend name to do. The module name is gonna be no underscore to do list. Now create index controller. Create directories controller and then index. Now create index controller class. The class should implement app action interface. Create page factory property. Now create result page factory instance. Set page title to do list. And finally return the result page. Now create layout directory, view, frontend, layout. Create index layout XML. Specify one column layout. Create a new block with class template. Specify block name km.todo and then specify template no underscore to-do list todo.html. Now create to-do.html under templates directory. Create a div with id km-todo and specify data binding scope km-todo-scope. Now create Magento init script. Specify type text / x Magento init. Now add JSON object to the script. Specify ID selector km-todo. Now specify app module. Under app module, specify components key. Next, we specify scope binding km-todo-scope. Now specify the component no underscore to-do list JS view and to-do component. Now go ahead and create to-do component. Create directories web.js view. Now create component to-do.js. Specify UI component dependency. Extend from UI component. Now under defaults object, specify the template no underscore to-do list and then todo.html. Now create template directory and create to-do template file. Inside template, create a div with a class to-do items. Now open todo.html template file and add the config key under component and specify todos key with the empty array values. Now inside todo array, create an object with some data. Create ID object with value 1 and then title object with the value meetings, and then add description object, start date, and let's say its value is 10 March, and then add end date object, duplicate the same object item and modify changes accordingly. Add some more items. Make sure we have at least 4 items. Optionally, we add a todos array under defaults object. The values will be replaced by provided config. Now replace div element with UL. Add data bind attribute. Specify for each loop data binding with todos property. And the for each loop will iterate over todos property values. So whatever child element under UL element is, that will be repeated number of times loop is executed. Now under list element, create a div element with the class top description. Then add h2 element with text binding and specify the title item. Now open todo.html template file. Now specify template binding. Now we need to install our module. Run setup upgrade command. Now open to the routing browser. Heading title rendered as expected. Now open todo.html template file. Create paragraph element with data binding attribute and specify class binding with the value description. Then add text binding with the description item. Now create a div element with class bottom section wrapper. And then create a child div with the class bottom section. Create span element wrapped under paragraph element. And specify text binding with the start underscore date item. Concatenate the dash with start date and then concatenate end date with it. So it should look like a range. Flash the cache and remove the static content. Reload the page. The description and the date range rendered as expected. Now open todo.html template file and add associated tasks information into those data. We will push completed task and total task items to every object in todos array. Add a span element wrapped under paragraph element and with text binding attribute with the total task item, and then add task text after that. Below the top description div, add a new element with the class name bottom description. Next, add child div element with class name action toolbar. Under new div element, create a span element wrapped with paragraph and add text binding with the value completed task item. which is concatenated with the forward slash and then concatenated with total tasks item. Create anchor element with attribute bindings. Specify href attribute binding with value hash. Then add class binding with classes section and view this task. Next, add text binding and specify its value, view tasks. Flush the cache and remove the static and generated content. Now reload the page. The output rendered as expected. Now open to-do component and add KO dependency. Create an observable property is visible and set is 0 as its default value. Now open to-do template. Create div element with the visible data binding and specify is visible observable property. This will hide the div content if its visible property is set to false, and the content will be visible in case of true value. Now move to-do items on order list on the newly created div element. Create another div element with the visible data binding and specify false operator before its visible property. This will work opposite to the above div. Then add paragraph with text binding. It should display no items message. Flush the cache and remove static and generated content. Reload the page. So we get the message because its visible property has 0 value. And we take a look through an element inspector. The first node is hidden while the next is visible. We will resolve the visibility by finding the length of provided to-do data. Inside to-do component, create initialize constructor function and then assign its value the to-do's array length. Flush the cache and remove static and generated content. Reload the page. The content loaded this time because its visible property length is greater than 0.